Why do bad things happen to good people? Why did this have to happen to them? Who is responsible for this? But hey, look, James is on the cover of the Junior. He is alive and he looks well, and so the other love interests must be in similar condition too. But just because things like anxiety and emotional pain can be seen, it doesn't mean that it's not there. And although Abbie and Tyler are not featured on the cover, I am 100% sure that they are alive. And I also think that if there are characters who will develop PTSD because of the car crash, there won't be only Abbie or Tyler either. In this video, I am going to talk about 4 things. First, MC's role in this series. Second, why Abbie and Tyler are alive, and who will have PTSD. Third, possible new love interests, who might and who might not be one of them. Last, PTSD plot, and what to expect. Please don't skip anything, especially the first 2 topics, because if you miss something, you're gonna be confused at the end of this video. In this game, we, the players, can identify ourselves with at least 1 or 2 of MC's friends, because it's the problems in her friends' lives that speak directly to most of us. Most of us LGBTQ+ people can relate to Caitlin's fears of being disowned, denied, and disapproved by her parents because of her sexuality. James's struggle with his parents happened because his chosen career path differed from what his parents originally wanted for him. Zach's journey to find his own passion happened after all his friends already found theirs. Chris has a deadbeat of a dad. Becca has fallen from grace. She went from being super rich to almost being broke. Zeke closed his heart to new people after being treated as an outsider for a long time because of his past. Sebastian had been used and manipulated by his own greedy father. While we might not have been through every single problem mentioned here, we know that these problems are very real, and in this game, they are introduced to us in a way that we feel generally safer to explore them because our character, MC, does not directly experience any of those terrible events herself. MC in this series has a role of someone who doesn't only learn more about each character's different kind of problems and pain, she also gives guidance to people and helps them get through difficulties in their lives. Difficulties that you, the player, might or might not have shared with the characters I mentioned. Maybe the reason that MC is a helper is because PB understands that sometimes you can only help yourself by helping others. And PB is nothing if not caring and cautious. Of course, they would want to help players get through their hardship using their game as a medium and not trigger the players through their game in the process. This is why I think the character who will have PTSD will not be MC. But it doesn't mean that it won't happen at all. Next, I am going to tell you 3 reasons why Abbie and Tyler are still alive. Although everyone cares more about their own love interest than they care about Abbie and Tyler combined, it doesn't mean that PB would kill one of them or both of them just for the hype. It won't happen. The first reason is because this series is romance. Professor Vasquez, the only character who died in the series, was terminally ill, and his death served to deliver the theme of the Freshman Book 2 to the audience, and that is live in the moment, because there is no use holding on to the pain in the past. Everyone will die someday anyway. But Abbie and Tyler will not die in this series. The second reason is because PB cares about diversity, but it's not just about the skin colors, genders, or sexualities of the characters. It's also about their personalities too. Abbie and Tyler are the only 2 introverts of the group. MC, Zach, and James might be ambiverts, but the rest is obviously extroverts. In most of the stories by PB, if not all, there are always both introverts and extroverts in MC's circle of friends. For example, in High School Story, you have Emma. In It Lives in the Woods, you have Lily. In Perfect Match, you have Sloane. And like I told you, the freshman is romance. So these two introverts won't get killed off so subtly. Third, it's because if your character is single, Chris Powell becomes the default character who gets in the car with Abbie and Tyler. It's 2018, killing Abbie and Tyler but keeping the white dude alive in your romance story where no one else has ever been killed in an accident would just do damage to PB's brand. Before I talk about the PTSD plot, I'm gonna talk about the car crash in Perfect Match and explain to you why no one in that series developed PTSD. Like I said before, MC in The Freshman has a role of someone who gives guidance to other characters and helps them get through difficulties in their lives. Her role is very different from MC of Perfect Match. In Perfect Match, the car crash was so bad that first, everyone had to go to the hospital. Second, Steve got weird and disappeared in the dead of the night. Third, Hayden had to ask Sloane to come pick them up because the car wasn't usable anymore. Yet no one developed PTSD. It's because Perfect Match belongs to romance and sci-fi genre. The focus of this story is about finding the truth behind Eros, a sketchy organization who finds the so-called perfect love interest for people. It's not about helping others like the story of The Freshman. So PTSD plot wouldn't make sense in Perfect Match, but it would make perfect sense in the Junior. First of all, if Abbie and Tyler were the characters who would have PTSD, then PB didn't have to make Chris a default character in the car when MC is single. They could have just made Abbie and Tyler go alone, just the two of them. Plus, do you remember the early chapters of The Freshman? When you started out as a new student without love interest yet, Chris became the default love interest that your character got involved with, whether you liked it or not. It will go the same in the Junior. This time, Chris will be the default character with PTSD if you're not dating anyone. And second of all, PB is not stupid, okay? They are aware that we care about our love interests more than we care about Abbie and Tyler. So it would be easier for PB to get us to purchase diamonds so that we will spend them on helping our love interests with PTSD. Otherwise, some of us would probably save our diamonds for the sexy vampires and gamers in Bloodbound instead. And I know that we all hate to see our favorite character go through pain, but if nothing happens, the story would just be boring. Smooth seas don't make skillful sailors. So something will need to happen in order for each and every character to develop to a new height. And in the Sophomore, we didn't get to experience any drama in our romance with our love interests. The love interests had their ups and downs, and they had drama scenes with someone else that wasn't us. So I think in the Junior, the drama in our romance will happen, especially now that you're moving in with them. But if your character is single, don't worry because there will definitely be new love interests in the next book. Before I talk about this, I want to tell you that my theory is not based on what I personally want. If you watch my gameplays, you know that I prefer fictional blonde women. This theory is based on the essence of the story, which is diversity. PB doesn't just include diversity for the sake of having characters with different skin colors and sexualities in the story. Each character also has different backgrounds and personalities, and you have to look past their skin colors and genders and sexualities in order to see them for who they really are. It's the same with how you should see people in real life. In The Freshman, PB turned Becca, aka one of the original bad guys, into a love interest. It is possible that they might do it again. Why? Let's take a look at the pros of this method. There will be less new commissions for illustration. The writers won't have to spend time on creating a bunch of brand new love interests who all have brand new backstories. They can use what they already have. That way, the writers can spend time writing about something else instead. So if PB decided to use this method in order to save cost and time again, one of the new love interests could be none other than Sebastian. I know. But when you look past Sebastian's appearance, you will see him for who he is. He is hardworking, he's good at acting, and he loves studying, and he is a nerd too, and there is no love interest like that in this series just yet. And I know that he mistreated Becca. She said that he was being a diva when the only diva in the relationship should have been her. But he owned his past mistakes and he apologized to her, and I think that was a big step from him. The character whom I think will not be a new love interest is Chelsea. This is not because Teddy and Chelsea hooked up with each other at one of the parties at MC's house. And I don't hate Chelsea, I don't have a problem with her, I think she is pretty, but Chelsea is just too similar to Becca. She was first introduced as a sorority girl who was dating a football player, and she was kinda snappy too. And by making her a love interest, PB won't create much meaningful value to the diversity in the story. So Chelsea's being a love interest is not going to happen. And speaking of diversity, the next character that I'm going to talk about might not be a new love interest, but she is an interesting character all the same. Alice, aka our new adjunct professor, has so much to offer. As you can see, Alice is paying homage to African culture. I like her braided bun, by the way. And did you know that most black women in the US have been pressured to straighten their hair to meet the beauty standard in the West for decades? There are many news articles about black women being told that their natural hair isn't professional at their workplace. I just think that in this game, Alice can talk about African hair and maybe raise awareness about hair discrimination, because why not? Alice has been to a lot of places. Obviously, she has a lot of experiences in the real world. She has done ethnographic research in Africa and South America. She's a well-established character, so I think there's a good chance that Pixelberry will let us learn more about her as well as her culture. She is going to be a new mentor who will help MC with her future career and maybe with other areas in MC's life too. With PTSD plot, I can imagine Chris, Zeke, and Becca not telling their families about their anxiety disorder because they wouldn't want to make them worry. Their families are going through a lot of stuff already. By the end of it, your relationship with your love interest will be so much improved. I wouldn't be surprised if Pixelberry let us marry them at the end of the senior. I mean, you're moving in with your love interest, so anything could happen in the future. But you gotta help them recover first. The reason that the characters should have an anxiety disorder instead of a severe physical injury is because if the latter happened, we wouldn't get a sex scene, just like that. And some of y'all write fanfictions that make readers go straight to the bathroom to get a cold shower. Y'all can't tell me you don't love sex scenes. And Pixelberry, they know that too, so they're not gonna take that away from us. In the Sophomore, everyone achieved something, right? Everything was up, and then we reached a turning point when all of a sudden it seemed like the most important thing to us in the story was almost taken away in a blink of an eye. But the car crash was a false defeat. It's called a false defeat because even though it feels like the world is crashing around you, you don't really get defeated here. The thing that will happen next is the characters are going to regroup and support one another through whatever new hardship they are going to face. Because that's how life is. You gotta move on. I have gathered information about PTSD from a couple of mental health websites. Links are in bio. Post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD is a form of anxiety disorder. It can be caused by a traumatic event such as a car accident, physical abuse, or serving in a war zone. And in order for an adult to be diagnosed with PTSD, the person must experience PTSD symptoms for at least 1 month. PTSD symptoms usually start soon after the traumatic event. But for some people, they may not happen until months after the trauma. There are 4 types of symptoms that people with PTSD have. The first one is re-experiencing. This is when they relive an unwanted memory by getting a flashback or a nightmare that made them feel like they are right back in the situation again. So if your love interest sees a car accident or watches news about a car accident, they might be triggered too. The second one is avoidance. They will stay away from things and people that remind them of the trauma. In this case, it would be getting in the car or driving or even watching movies about car race. So your love interest wouldn't be like, hey babe, let's get in my car and go somewhere nice together. But there are still other places that you can go with them. The third one is negative changes in beliefs or feelings. They may not have positive feelings towards themselves or others. And they might not trust people because they feel that the world is dangerous. This one is surely gonna affect their confidence, but it's not gonna be something that your diamonds can't fix. The last one is hyperarousal. They might always be on the lookout for danger. They might be anxious when they go outside. And they might be startled by loud noises. They can also become angry too, and they might have a hard time sleeping or concentrating. All of these will naturally result in performance and productivity decline. If the symptoms go on over 3 months, the sufferer should get professional help like therapy or medication. Some sources claim that meditation works too. And obviously, the love interests will need moral support from you, so the confidence improved mechanic will still be featured in the game together with the relationship improved mechanic. Most of them will definitely be locked in the premium scenes like usual. And since this series is romance, I think the love interests wouldn't be triggered easily all the time in every single chapter. Because that would defeat the purpose of this game, which is letting the players learn the different kind of pain and problems of each character, while everyone in general can still feel entertained by the story because it's not super emotional. Personally, I think the story would be more interesting if the driver of the other car turned out to be one of the bad guys in the next book, and they did it on purpose out of spite or for revenge. The story would be a bit more intense, and everyone will be eager to see MC and her friends win more than ever. There is one more thing that I want to tell you, and it's not about the game. I don't know if you have PTSD or not, but I want to say that just because you can see your emotional wound, it doesn't mean that you can just leave it and hope that it will go away someday. It doesn't work like that. I know because when I was 14 or 15, I was sexually assaulted by the same guy, like, I don't even know for how many times. And I chose to ignore my pain along with the memory, and then I tried not to think about it. Then more than 10 years passed, and I was never able to forget it. Even as an adult, if something reminded me of my experience and I thought about it for just a little, it would actually hurt even more than it did in the past. Because I couldn't understand why the pain wouldn't lessen or go away even after all these years. When something bad happens, you might ask yourself over and over again, why me? Why did this thing happen to me? Whose fault is it? Or you might think about what you should have done or shouldn't have done in order to prevent the incident from happening. But you know what? Those things, they don't matter. Because even if you know the answers to those questions, you still won't be able to heal. What you should do is acknowledge your emotional pain and seek help. I know from experience that the longer you ignore it, the more it will hurt. You need to always remember that it's never your fault. So don't blame yourself. Don't ever blame yourself. And you are not weak if you feel the pain in your heart. Whatever happened, you are still the same beautiful soul that you have always been. And if you want to know, I am okay now. And I'm just an ordinary person, and if I can get through my pain, you can get through yours too. I'm gonna wrap up right here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jacey the Jester, and see you next time.